Good morning, everyone. Link CXO welcomes all of you to this webinar on digital marketing landscape India post-COVID scenario. I'd like to start with introducing the vision of Link CXO and then take lead with the speakers. Link CXO is an advanced AI-based platform exclusively meant for C-suite executives. We at Link CXO are building an exclusive community of leaders who can grow and influence the social world around them. The speakers for today's event are Mr. Uh, Arijit Bhattacharya. He's the founder and CEO at Virtual Infocom. He's an entrepreneur, angel investor, startup mentor, TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker, and an international business developer. We welcome you to the event, sir.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Mr. Abhijit Dandekar. He's the CEO and MD at Saintio Technologies. He's a former director, solution IT and BPO, former executive director and VP at Thesis Technologies Middle East, FZE. Welcome to the event, sir.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody.
Next up, we have Mr. Samir Wagh. He's the Chief Architect and CEO at Commentech Solutions Private Limited. He's the former Chief Technology Officer at Cirrus Wireless Technologies Private Limited. He's also the former AVP at Hexware Technologies Private Limited. Hearty welcome, sir.
Great to see you guys. Thanks, Vinita. And
without any further delay, I ask Mr. Abhijit Dandekar, Arijit Bhattacharya to start with this presentation. Over to you, sir.
So who will start, Abhijit or me?
No, you.
Anybody, sir.
Okay, not an issue. So I'll give you a perspective which is coming up and which is the future, and slowly I'll come back to India and probably share a few of the insights which is probably help you out. See, nowadays, if you look at the perspective of world, the very word called digital media or the very term called digital marketing is practically connected with multiple different kind of technology solution. And those technologies are emerging day in and day out. And during this pandemic, to be very honest, it has grown, from probably 5 to 50 times. And the world is waiting when pandemic is over, world is moving in a smooth and normal manner. These technologies will actually rock into the world. One other example is augmented reality connected with blockchain technology, which is going to thrive in the market. I'll give you a live example. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the latest augmented reality glass by Jio, of course, from Reliance. But in the Western countries, the augmented reality glasses has been evolved like anything. Imagine a situation. You're driving your car and you have your AR glass. The small form of augmented reality is AR. So you have your AR glass and you are just driving, and this glass is interconnected with your own metabolism system and your own health system. It can detect your blood pressure. It can understand that at what time you eat what kind of food, and it understands your mindset. It can detect your emotional feelings. And probably this is 5 o'clock in the evening, and in usual days, you have your usual meal at 5 o'clock, probably a couple of small snacks, or maybe a cup of coffee. While you're driving, your AR glass is talking to you, it's giving you information. It's 5 o'clock. According to my understanding, this is your time for your coffee and your few snacks. So would you like to go for the same? I can find out the nearby store where you can probably get your usual coffee, maybe a cappuccino, and with few of the cookies, and probably with few French fries. You say yes. It will automatically detect the nearby restaurant where you can get your own kind of food. It can detect it within the next 5 kilometers. Before you go there, the order has been placed. You just drive in, you have your coffee, you get your French fries, and you drive to your destination. What happened in between? You never ever paid anything. You never ever punched your credit card. You never ever did any kind of banking system using your mobile. Nothing happened. Everything happened from the back end. So this AR glass is connected with your banking system using a complete secured gateway, probably powered by blockchain, probably something beyond that. I can explain that, but I think this is not a technical session. But your payment is already done from the bank to that particular restaurant. And the glass is actually watching that you are consuming it or not. And it will again ask you whether the coffee is okay or not, because the rating system will be given by the glass again. So if you don't like the coffee or you don't like the French fries, the rating system will happen in an automatic way, in an auto mode. And that's one of the biggest advantage we are going to get, whether you call it AI, whether you call it powered by machine learning, you call it a AR glass, you call it a back-end payment mechanism. Everything is mixing with each other. So now the future is not about you are talking about only one technology, probably maybe only one segment, that you have an e-commerce portal and that's going to happen. People will jump into your e-commerce portal and they will buy. It's not going to happen. I'll give you another live example, which is happening in the Korean market. Probably very soon you will see those kind of solution in Indian market as well. There are gesture control rings, which has been evolved and developed during this pandemic time by few of the scientists who actually developed a gesture control ring, which can detect your motion, which can understand and create a 3D gesture of yours, a complete 3D avatar of yours. Now, why it is happening? Well, for an example, if I am talking here, now say the same subject, same topic, at the same time, somebody is asking me to give me, an option if I can talk in same two topics in two different locations. Can I do that? It will be very difficult for me. Probably I have to use multiple different devices. Probably they will have some kind of issues. Probably I can't address all the audience properly. But when you have that kind of gesture control rings, your 3D avatar can be present into probably 5 to 6 different locations. You don't need me in reality. So if I am talking, actually my avatar will be there. He will be presenting my presentation with 5 different locations in same point of time. The opportunities are, coming like anything. So it is upon us whether and how we can detect that opportunity and implement that. Now, coming back to the Indian market, if we look at the Indian market for the digital perspective, if we look at the same very structure, can we say that it is possible? Can we have a augmented reality glass and we have a drive away and probably within 5 kilometers we find a local store where we can give the order? Probably I'm thinking, maybe a science fiction story. It is very difficult. I'll tell you one of the reasons. At least till date in India, if we talk about digital marketing, we don't have internet in a lot of places. Trust me, it's a fact. Okay. If you look at the tier 3 cities, they find it difficult to connect, at least using their smartphone. Forget about AR. Now, when we think of that kind of structure, that kind of infrastructure, first and foremost thing that we need is a proper infrastructure balance for India, which is really, really required, at least for internet connectivity, number one. Number two, laws and regulation. If you look at the structure, the infrastructural structure for Indian perspective, if we think of something on, let me be very simple. If we think on something on e-commerce, I'm really sorry if we look at the cash on delivery mechanism, or maybe, how we order, how we place maybe a piece of shirt or maybe a suit. A lot of consumers in India do have different kind of mindset. Heavily backed and powered by heavy investment. All these startups, they're trying to grab the market. They are giving a lot of option to the consumer. But from consumer point of view, the main issue that at least I can see, people usually order 16 to 20 dress. They are not going to buy it. What they are going to do, they will try it, probably, use it for a day, and then they say that return it back. I don't need it, change it. So I guess if we continue in such manner, if we don't work with the entrepreneur and with the consumer point of view, if consumers are still continuing like this, I don't feel there is a green light that I can see at the end of the e-commerce revolution, whatever we are thinking of. I think we need some consumer perspective. I think we need some kind of structure, and that structure is not very complicated to make. If you look at voice tagging, that's a mechanism that has been evolved in US. It is going to come very soon in probably either in Amazon or probably in some other mechanism. Voice tagging is a technology. So using voice tagging, people can detect from the back end whether who is giving the order, whether this person's intention is right or wrong. So it is actually connecting your, say, I'm giving you a live example. I need a red t-shirt. I want to buy a red t-shirt. I need a red t-shirt. So there are 3 different sentences that I have, used. Depending on a back-end mechanism, depending on my, the way I'm giving the order, it can detect whether I actually need it or not, or it's just a kind of wax. I'm just asking it just out of nothing. So those are the kind of mechanism that has been evolved during this COVID. And probably you will see very soon that this voice tagging will be implemented in those large infrastructure-based e-commerce portals, which can actually wipe out all these false order. Now, it's a challenge for a startup, at least from Indian perspective, to integrate all those high-cost voice tagging mechanism. So what is the way out? Probably the way out would be connecting and understanding the consumer perspective from the back end. How many orders that person have already given. So it needs a data analysis. It needs a personalized analytical system. It needs a mechanism which can connect, understand the persona of a consumer. It's called consumer persona. So those kind of mechanism needs a lot of workforce. So I see there is a huge opportunity for youngsters to probably jump into the latest generation technologies, understand it, understand few bit of language, probably go for Python. It's a very basic language to understand, and then go for a data analytics mode. And of course, learn a little bit about artificial intelligence and implement that within the solution. Let me try to be non-technical. I'm really sorry if I'm hopping to a lot of technical jargons, but can't help it because this is interconnected. If we talk about AI in India, we feel selecting some object or selecting some amount of data and then filtering it out and then giving a result is called AI. For an example, you have a database and you're searching some name, and maybe you're using your voice and say that I need Mr. Wah, I need the cricket bat of Mr. Steve Wah, right? And if you can detect that 3 different language, three different words, cricket bat and Steve Wah, and then you match it with your database, giving you a result, and you call it AI, I'm really sorry, that's not AI, okay? For me, it is actually a sophisticated method of searching your tags, matching that tag, and giving you a result back. Now, when you talk about AI-generated, AI-powered e-commerce portal, it has to be automated. It has to be connected and interconnected with the machine learning mechanism. It has to be a data scientist who can practically detect and understand your data mechanism, your understanding structure, and of course, your infrastructure balance from the back end, which can actually give you the proper result. Now, when we are talking about the future, which is probably post-COVID or during COVID, what is going on in Indian market? Of course, there is a huge difference, the huge implementation difference that happened in India. Gaming, for an example, has been increased day in and day out like anything in Indian perspective. In earlier days, when we used to produce produce a couple of games for the Indian market. Those Indianized games never ever got that kind of hype. But due to the COVID, it got enormous hype. And I know a very smart company which can actually convert this normal gaming infrastructure with local store. Just think of it as a possibility. I'm not giving you the solution. For an example, you're probably, we do that in the Western countries. We do that in the few of the Asian countries, but Indian law doesn't allow us to do a lot of things. I'm giving you a possibility. For an example, you're playing a game, you win some kind of digital object. Maybe that's a dress, maybe that's some kind of fruits, maybe that's a toy. But in real life, those gaming objects are remaining into your digital media. You can't actually redeem it into the real life object. Now, what's going on, if you connect that infrastructural balance from that gaming perspective, imagine a situation, you go to a store and you redeem your digital coins to that particular store, and you get maybe a toy with a 20% discount on that particular toy. That's gonna be one of the future. So if you look at consumer perspective, if you look at the structure of India, if you look at the youngsters, probably this is one of the finest future people can get. I'll quote from Mr. Craig Johnson. Craig is a celebrity football player. He got a patent for Reebok shoes. He's going to speak in our World Leaders Summit in December 2020. When I asked him that, could you please talk about yourself? He was giving a very nice introduction. You know, what he was talking, he was saying that I used to play football in Liverpool's. I have played in FIFA. Now I'm trying to teach the youngsters about, you know, how to play sports, how to go for soccer ball, how to play football. But in today's generation, if I talk about, you know, 1970s structure, they are not going to accept me. So instead of that, because I'm 60, what I'm using virtual reality technology to teach these youngsters how to play football. They are playing it in actually, probably inside their room, but they are using VR technology and I'm teaching them. So look at the possibility. It's not about how and why and where. People are nowadays totally alone. They are sitting in their home and sitting idle. So if you really want to teach, you use those technical, I call it as a catalyst. You use it as a technology catalyst to teach them, guide them probably for real life. So I don't feel the digital marketing era or maybe the digital implementation era is going to happen in a very fast mode in India. But yes, with proper infrastructure, with proper net connectivity, with few bit of probably new blood, fresh blood in the industry, they will come up with a lot of different these kind of solution. These are not all thoughts. It actually happened in few part of the world. But I guess we need few players who can actually implement those kind of infrastructure, and actually we can have those so-called science fiction stories in reality. I think I'm taking a lot of time and I should keep my mouth shut so that, you know, people can ask questions, and maybe it's time for me to take a leave.
Yes, sir. So we will have a quick Q&A session at the end of the discussion. Also, thank you so much for your thoughtful views about AR and VR technologies. And over to you, Mr. Abhijit Dandekar.
Thank you so much, Rita. That was a great opening by Arijit, and he actually showed us a lot of insights into how the digital future is going to be. I think having set the pace by Arijit, I would like to directly go to the topic of digital marketing post-COVID-19. So I would like to share my screen. Yes, sir. Are you able to see the screen, Vinuta?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
My name is Abhijit Dandekar. As the introduction has already been given, I'm the founder and director of Centio Technologies. We are a Pune-based company. We are primarily focused on providing digital transformation solutions and these solutions are in the various areas, catering to different types of industries, starting with manufacturing industry and going to services industries also. So with that brief introduction, I will go to the topic directly. General scenario during COVID-19. So I'm just going to sum up how the scenario was when COVID-19 came to India and next few months after that. This actually spread out ultra fast globally, and this was probably the first of an experience in centuries. People were quite baffled as a result of that. There were a lot of lockdowns and unlockdowns, and which were happening, and there were conflicting messages from local and central governments. It actually confused people in a way. While most of the public was having a general self-discipline, in terms of wearing masks, not venturing out, and keeping the social distance, etc. There were few groups or individuals which were okay. So there was confusion over containment and preventive measures declared by the governments from time to time, and people were not really able to figure out what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done, or what should be avoided completely. Then there were stringent travel and movement restrictions. So any movement initially in the lockdown period was completely restricted. Later on, some restrictions were lifted, and certain amount of movement was allowed by road, rail, and air. And at the end of it, when unlockdown happened, all the restrictions have been lifted. But still, there is fear in the minds of people, and people are still taking a lot of care. There was initial euphoria about low numbers in India, in terms of the percentage as well as the absolute numbers, but it was replaced with pessimism about the rising toll of deaths and total cases. There was massive uncontrolled pan-India movement of labor. That was actually one of the major concerns during that time, which all of us remember. There were thousands of people gathering at railway stations and bus stations to catch the bus to go to their hometowns and all. There was severe shortage of PPE kits initially. There was lower rate of testing, and overall pictures of social stigma towards the health workers, which was quite shocking because the same people who were trying to help us, we were actually beating them and all that. A lot of fake news were circling around on the social networks. Misleading information was spread by media. Contradicting statements were given at times by WHO, ICMR, and other agencies, so which again created a lot of confusion. Massive layoffs happened in the industry as a result of all the slowdown, and there were a lot of job losses across the industry and across all the hierarchy. So not just the junior level or senior level people were fired from the jobs, but a lot of people across the board, they lost their jobs. So with all that impact, how it impacted the Indian businesses. Successive lockdowns actually brought the business activities to a standstill. That was a very high impact on the manufacturing segment in particular, because some of the services sector industries were able to operate, at least work from home and remotely. But when it comes to actual production, it was not possible to work from home. And therefore, there was a heavy impact in terms of the overall manufacturing activity. There was reduced demand brought by many companies, which brought many companies to the edge of bankruptcy. So we have seen several companies declaring either negative growth or having gone bust in this particular period. Huge exodus of workmen actually led to problem of replacing skilled workforce. So that is another big problem even now, because a lot of people went to their hometowns or and then they never returned because they perhaps got jobs somewhere else. So replacing skilled workforce was a major problem. Reduced business activities translated into large scale layoffs, pay cuts, reduced new hiring, budget cuts, cutting down on non-essential spend. So the effect of all this was across the board. Companies were trying to cut down costs wherever possible. Businesses which were less impacted during this time, obvious reasons were, healthcare, pharmaceutical, medical equipment, online media and entertainment, insurance, and professional services, which were all related to either the work from home culture which was coming in, or related to the healthcare services which were to be provided during this COVID time. Businesses which were most impacted, obviously, were the travel, tourism, because of the complete ban. Manufacturing, again, to a very large extent, because the production activities were stopped, machines were down, there were no workforce to operate the machines. Real estate companies, construction, because people didn't have money to invest into real estate or in construction activities, and that didn't definitely remain a priority. Restaurants, multiplexes, and malls, even till today, in many states, they are, either the restaurants are closed or semi-opened with a lot of restrictions in terms of the hygiene conditions and all that. Multiplexes and malls are still closed anyway in many states. So these were some of the businesses which were most impacted. Now, post-COVID unlockdown, there are certain businesses which are on recovery path. For example, e-commerce, companies like Amazon or Flipkart have started working full-fledged, and they are home delivering solutions with no contact deliveries and all. So people have become little less concerned about e-commerce, and they are availing those services. Online education is another industry which has boomed because of the job losses. A lot of people felt that this was a good time for upgrading their skills. And even the students who were, just passing out, they were unable to join the jobs, so they decided to do some further education. So online education actually proliferated quite a lot during this time. IT and ITES, obviously, because of the work from home suits them, their business model the best. They actually are doing well. Logistics, again, because of the e-commerce and the movement of goods to some extent and services, it has improved. Online food delivery was another area which was earlier banned, but then slowly opened, and now a lot of people prefer getting online food delivery at home rather than going to the restaurants. Rise of digital marketing, the impact of COVID on that. Best non-contact medium. Obviously, digital marketing works best for the pull marketing, as Arijit had just summed up. It is most suitable for the growing work from home culture. Okay, so, because of the digital marketing, there is very little or no physical contact, and therefore it works very well. Less human dependence compared to the conventional marketing. So again, conventional marketing requires a lot of campaigns and physical meetings, road shows, and seminars and so on, which all has got replaced with the e-meetings, web meetings, and webinars and stuff like that. So there is a lot of human dependence which has been eliminated. It is less expensive, obviously, and it is faster than the conventional marketing. So you spend very, very little, and still you are able to reach out the masses much faster as a result of that. There is a huge potential to reach out a much larger global audience, and the target customers. So your markets are not anymore limited only to the local markets. You are able to reach global markets because of the spread of internet everywhere. Easier to communicate organizations' response to new government initiatives like Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, Swachh Bharat, and so on. So government has also launched a lot of initiatives over the last few years, and we can actually, communicate the organization response using digital marketing through these initiatives. It opens a variety of communication avenues. Like one-on-one communication is possible, one-to-many is possible, audio or video media can be availed and exploited to the best, advertisements can be possible, digital campaigns, and so on. It brings the world very, very close. You can browse any product or service with the help of channels like YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, Flipkart, or Instagram, and so on. All right, so some of the interesting trends, you can see the conversion growth or decline due to COVID across the various industries like advertising, agriculture, construction, all this. And there is positive impact on some of the industries like food, healthcare, uh, media, and pharma, which was quite expected anyway. And the negative impact was on rest of the industries. So they have all registered negative growth as a result of it. There is a ROI on paid ads, which was before and after COVID-19, which has significantly increased post COVID-19 on paid ads. Then there is spectrum of purchasing loyalty exhibited by consumers around the world. This is quite interesting that India is actually, intend to continue on a much lesser percentage as compared to the rest of the world. So Indian consumers are basically, more willing to change to other brands or to change to different types of, mediums of purchasing as compared to the rest of the world. And most of the B2B companies in our survey, they actually shifted to go-to-market models in response to the COVID-19 crisis. So as you can see over here in the last bar chart, in-person or field sales team meeting with, face-to-face with customers has reduced, obviously. Inside sales teams also has reduced. Online support has gone up, and the e-commerce also has gone up. So obviously, it is the impact of the digital marketing and the digital transformation that is slowly taking place. Digital adoption has increased by 5 times in the last 3 months, even in industries which were previously quite rigid and shy. So industries which were technology agnostic or technology shy earlier, they have adopted to the digital transformation much more easily because it has become a necessity. Consumers from the age group of 35 to 44 age bracket increased their internet consumption by 11%, while the millennials observed an average increase of 5 to 7%. That is because millennials were already using the digital technologies very swiftly and very easily, whereas the age group 35 to 44 and above was taking time to get accustomed to it. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp, everybody has witnessed rises in the number of sessions per week per user. Viewership of news channels in India grew by 57%. Advertising on news grew by 21%. So there is a huge impact of the COVID-19 situation. And as a result, you can see the digital marketing has become a necessity. I'll go to the next slide. Change landscape for Indian businesses. So accepted new normal, which is one of the most widely and loosely used terms for simple steps like cover, sanitize, and keep distance. So the new normal has become a accepted normal for the industry. Digital transformation becomes a buzzword for businesses. Every mom and pop store also, you can see that they are actually finding out ways to reach out their customers using mobile marketing, digital media to interact and to gain some customers. And the problem is that today every customer is holed up in the safety net of their homes and working from home. So to attract them, digital transformation seems to be the only way to reach out. Increased use of digital payments for non-contact transactions, digital wallets usage has gone up. Increased use of social media advertising over print or mass media. Terms like CPP have replaced the CPP have been replaced by CPC, cost per click. People have been blogging to reach out local customers being used, this particular channel has been used by entrepreneurs and small businesses. Focus on survival, that is customer retention than growth. So survival has become a necessity. So even if you are not able to gain new customers or gain additional profit, at least stop the loss and adhere to the loyal customers. So customer retention has become key issue. Brake, shift gear, and accelerate. Now, adopting new product or services strategy, that is making or trending on, trading in ventilators, masks, PPE kits. Many businesses I have seen that they have switched over from their existing product lines to manufacturing of ventilators, masks, PPE kits, because that is the need of the hour. So that is how they have actually shifted the gears to align with the market requirements. And RK Lakshman's common man has become digital savvy. So that's one major gain as a result of this particular COVID pandemic. I would say that this has become sort of a boon in a way. And yeah, I'll just move on to the next and my last slide. Best digital marketing strategies, which should be adopted in 2021, in my opinion. Use more referral based marketing. So you should be more dependent on reviews and ratings. Getting good reviews and ratings will ensure that you will get more customers. Use trending social media platforms. So you should know which are the social media platforms which are most popular, and you should be flexible enough to change to those platforms so that you can maximize your reach. Subtly use local micro influencers. Micro influencers are the people in your local community with whom you should be able to, from whom you will be seeking advice. And therefore you should, as a company, you should be able to identify such micro influencers and use your advertisements through them rather than using celebrities for capturing local customers. Use local languages and dialects for better reach and connectivity. So since you have to reach nooks and corners of India, you should be able to communicate your message through the local languages and dialects. Cost of modern tools such as which are basically very low cost, such as text to speech, chatbots, video bots, video or graphic creation tools, animation tools should be increasingly used in order to reach out and in order to get your message across. Using SEO, website campaign analysis tools to check page visitors, traffic, CPC, CTR rates, all these things, they are basically helping you finding out the effectiveness of your digital marketing. Exploit the festival season, which is typically in India from August 2020 to January 2021 to the maximum. August to January is the period where most of our festivals are, and exploit that to the maximum because that is the time people are going to purchase. Leverage the ban on Chinese goods as an opportunity or a boon to gain hold in the Indian market, because we saw for several years Chinese goods were flooding the markets, but with the aggression across the border and the government measures which have been taken, I think this has come as a boon for the Indian businesses. And the last point is leverage government promotions of Atmanirbhar Bharat, Swachh Bharat and all these schemes so that you can actually brand your products under Made in India or Atmanirbhar schemes and reach out people. There will be an emotional attachment to that Indian consumers will have. So with that, actually, I have just covered whatever points I wanted to put across, and I would like to take questions at the end of it.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a very valuable information about digital marketing landscape. And next up is Mr. Samir Wagh. Over to you, sir. Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Am I audible properly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. That was a great session from Arijit as well as Mr. Nadekar with a lot of information which I got, which was perhaps which was well written and well planned. So basically, I want to say let's make it cut short because many of the topics are also discussed out. So this is a very relevant topic right now, what we are talking about, and what has happened with related to COVID-19 has brought in something very interesting thought way of a paradigm shift to the overall way with which we are working in the current segment. What we are going to do is, I'm going to talk about it in a total different way. What I'm seeing it like this, that the work from home is cheaper and cost effective, but the customer touch missing when it comes down to any getting out of a new appointment or a new availability and all of that when it comes to remote customers. So when we are talking about on these aspects, it is going to remain. We have to go and meet customers face to face, and that is what one of the area where I am sure that we will have to continue and we will have to propose it. One of the area where I can see it post COVID is digital revolution is for sure. In the coming days, we have to move towards a digital revolution, and there are a requirement of where education is concerned. When you are having a basic training which is related to schools, whether it related to colleges, where the students are not that I should say mature enough to learn. In fact, a student like a kid is asked to by teacher by moms and dads, "Hey, do study, do study." At this time, and a teacher plays a very important role of teaching a student to first get them into liking studies, into loving studies, into getting more knowledge as such. So basic training in house will remain, and so are the schools going to remain. So are the education institutions going to remain. And because there are so many advanced courses online, there are so many courses online. People are not saying that okay, let's leave the schools, let's leave the education institutes and just take out advanced and professional training online, and you are now a doctor, you are now very this. So I'm seeing it in much better. One of the area where I will also see is areas like natural language processing, machine learning. It'll impact you to learn a particular product, a particular subject in their own language, and that is what is going to come out as we go across. So usually, a mother tongue is the way with which you learn. Okay, and if you learn in the terms of education, when we are seeing it, we are going to see that professional training will be online, but it will also come down in your own language as we go across. So this is something which I am really definitely seeing it, and industries like hospitality and tourism, right now they may have we are stopping all the trains, the buses and everything, all those things, but they will be back to normal once the vaccine is over. We are going to go and going on to, everybody loves that, going all the way to a foreign country, enjoy a holiday, and look at entertainment and everything. So all those things are definitely going to come back. So people who are not currently are having that sort of expertise in that area, hospitality, tourism, serving clients, serving various uh, services with related to airlines and everything, they are going to be back to normal. It will be first to attract, it will be more cost effective. There will be a business impact for sure, but that will be back to normal and it will keep on growing as we go across. So it is a right time right now. If your investment is concerned and if your thing is concerned, you are going to get a low cost, uh, a low cost, I should say, a vacation in the coming months. So why do when I'm saying about entrepreneurs over here present in this task, every entrepreneurs have to have when there is a sort of a turmoil, whether it is a 2009 major, I should say, financial crisis which had happened, we've all moved towards low cost or cost effectiveness, and all organizations went on to cost cutting. So the first cost cutting which came out was marketing expense. The second came out was with related to the services cost. The third cost which came out was tech vendors which were very high priced. They were asked to move out. There was a cost cutting there. And the fourth one which came out was the personnel in the company itself. They were kicked out. And when these are the lines, this is the series with which cost effectiveness, cost cutting is done. And this is globally. This is with every organization. And what is main problem today is building of the brand, where if the companies have not yet built the brand, they are in a total pain of pushing their product worldwide globally. So what does digital marketeers needs to do today is that building of the brand has to be made as an expertise which will remain and which will stand, and one has to be a thoroughbred expert in that. So what are entrepreneurs looking? They are looking at valuation of the company. They are seeing of high value customers. They may be high value orders, but they have to be profit making. And then there have to be a low value orders which are done by the masses. Online, over the counter selling, B2C, large number of customers are there. They are using their price, their products, and you don't have to pay a lot for the marketing expense. In fact, it should be self-sustaining. So what happens, it's related to post-COVID is that the entrepreneurs have to go to the first foremost thing that they have to make their business and move towards cloud. This will be mandatory. I don't see anybody investing much, far too higher in operating the office by buying out a big office and maintaining it with a very high cost, unless there is a regular financial flow. But operating the office from anywhere, any device, and using great tools like the cloud ERP solutions and the CRM solutions is going to be mandatory for every business. When it comes down to business, which is into trading, whether it is into manufacturing and other things. Manufacturing plants will definitely be there. Workers have to come together to do production of the product. And there has to be machines which are automated, which produce the product. The logistics which will continue to be there. But does it require accountants, the staff of the company to operate from a office, which is an air-conditioned office? Is it necessary? One has to see it. I mean, does it give value to it? So people will be moving towards offices which are operatable from anywhere, any device. And these cloud ERP solutions and CRM solutions are going to be the need of the century, the need of the business. And this will reduce the office infrastructure costs as well as and costs which are associated with it. What about, but there is a failure to it. There is a question mark to it. Today, the financial system of the bank, they fund the real estate, they fund for the office. And these real estate prices grow. Beyond the years, the purchase price office you are able to get a much more leverage just by using that office, taking the loan, and then when it is over after the EMIs are over, you are getting a very good price for that office. So, and then you get more and more additional funding from the bank. So there is a sort of I don't know how long it will continue to do, but in the last 10 years, there has been substantial gains by just buying office and buying real estate, but paying for the EMIs, and getting out all and now you get a very high price for the copies. But in spite of that, I see it that meeting rooms, conference rooms, mobile trade center offices will continue to thrive, and one can do a great business. Irrespective of that, I see that it will be a mandatory for any business to go global, promote or revise their product line to make it globally acceptable, and push that product into the market through digital marketing means is going to be a norm of the future. Understand the basic. The Chinese are doing that. Chinese are dumping their products, and then they are ensuring that okay that they get sold digitally. Do you see any Chinese office over here? Not much. But do you see a Chinese products over here? Lot many. And that is what one businesses have to do. They have to target global markets, and they have to target it with customizing their product line to the country of that. And along with it, with the latest technological things, one has to be ruthless enough to disbandon a non-working product, though they have invested a fair amount of money in that. So if it is not working, it is not going to work a product. It's not just passion, working with the that it had given you a great gains earlier, so it will go again next. One has to see the future, and if it is not going to work in the market, it has to be disbanded. And you need to be changing the product to suit the requirements of the current. So change management is one of the major aspects which all entrepreneurs has to see. And one has to also put down cost of advertising and doing it through partnerships with various digital marketing channels, include brand equity if it is there, and survive their business. This is mandatorily required for all entrepreneurs, and this is what we as a company are also doing. We are inviting all the companies which are doing advertising, marketing, to be as a part of equity participation. We are doing a lot many things in that, and there is also quite a bit of a talk process which one has to see with related to salaried professionals, which are there, the CXOs who are there, when senior management people who are there. Since results matter, you have to bring out the revenue which is there, and you have to understand what are the weaknesses of your products and which are there if you are salaried, and if there is need of cost for subscription of marketing, you need to pay. Google takes money and from subscription. If it is giving that value, you need to pay. And one has to see the need of the market, and one has to do a market research on the revision of the product, and one has to do how the technology change, which will bring and what it will create a problem when it comes to selling this particular product which you are promoting to the industry. And as a balance, a manufacturing organization will also have to look at trading of non-manufactured products in the plant also as a supplement to the company survival. It may be difficult in some cases, but if it is necessary to survive, then it has to be done. And that is what, again, we have to look at it, where we have to target global markets, and we have to promote and revise the product line. I can understand a number of salaried professionals out of the job. If there is a out of the job, if your financials permit, start a business. If you are at the end of the career, join a board in any other marketing any other company on a non-executive way, on a consulting way, and get yourself as such for aspiring job professionals. Those who are freshers, those are people who are beginner, or there are things. I see that just like accountants, lawyers, there is a profession for digital marketing, and then there is a profession for digital specialists. just understand, my daughters are much more technically savvy than me. I was not using much of Instagram. I was using only LinkedIn and various others, which because I felt always Instagram was used by this. But today we are having a live session with Instagram. Now, when it comes down to, I was surprised to see my daughters were already there. And I was also see that whenever there is any requirement of any type of a product, thing like a Swiggy or something to be purchased or something, they just do it much faster than me, and they are fully well aware about a product, much more than what I know. Whether they want to buy an iPhone, whether they want to buy anything else, it is they have a much more knowledge about the product line. This is because the technical people who are there in the younger generation, they are browsing and they are well aware about the near current trends, and unless as per digital marketing is concerned, they are much more digital marketing than me. Though I have a lot of experience behind me, but what I'm stating that there is a profession which will come in where people will say that I have an office, somebody is there who is a digital marketing office who has there, I go over there, I have a problem of healthcare, or I have a problem of I need a best of the product in on a particular. I go and ask him. He works out with his own lot of skills which are there, and he comes out with a range of products. I can do that myself using Google search, but this digital marketing person will be having certain additional tools, additional methods of searching, know-how about SEO, knowing about various other types of things to find out the right type of thing, product, and deliver it to me. And he will say that, okay, and he will be charging for his consulting. This is a profession which will come in, and I am pretty sure that it will come. And there are certain things like specializations also. For instance, you require know-how about certain diseases there. You go down to a doctor, and the doctor will provide. But actually, there are required, if there are digital specialists who are not required to be doctors, but they are as a healthcare, they have quite a bit of a repository of a particular ailment. And if they are readily available for you at a particular pricing, you will go down to them, get the entire information about about the ailment, the disease, and things like that, and get out all the details about it, work towards it. And today we are doing it ourselves, going down to the Google search. But if there are certain professionals and specialists available for doing that, you will try to get their information, and any person will be able to take it up. And this is also a requirement of all people present over here. And whether you want to have a product, whether you want to do education, whether you want to go in for higher studies in the US, whether you have to take care about digital education specialists who will put you to the right university for a particular course and take it. There are courses for information security auditing. Every system, whether it is banking, that requires compliance, whether they require auditing of various security related aspects for their IT system. There is going to be another roles which are there, which are professionals who will be there for security, information security audit, which will be courses, which will be certified people, which will.
Sir, thank you so much. We now have a Q&A session, and also Roshni has already typed the question. It is for Mr. Abhijit.
Yeah, it's a question from Mr. Vikas Pandey. It's a very good question, which I would like to take.
Yes, sir.
Whenever I'm purchasing online, the question is, in slide number 7 of your presentation, you mentioned best digital marketing strategies for 2020-21. Please advise best practices that can be followed by consumers to ensure authenticity of referral-based marketing and influencers. So the practice which I normally follow is that first of all, if I'm purchasing anything, I will purchase it from, as far as possible, a very well-known portal or a site where there would be hundreds and thousands of consumers who would be purchasing that particular or several products. So that will give me some kind of assurance that it is a trusted site. Second thing is, if I'm purchasing a particular product and if I'm checking the ratings and reviews of that product, what I will look for typically is anything above 4 stars is what I would normally look for if it is a 5-star rating maximum. So something which is reasonably good product has to have at least a 4-star rating given by a satisfied customer. Third thing I will look for is the number of reviews and ratings which have been published for that particular product. So if it is just few ratings, 1 or 2, and all of them are 5-star, then that is something which makes me a little doubtful about buying that. If it is a low-cost product, I don't mind taking my chances because maybe that particular product has been launched recently and purchased by a few consumers. And it is really a good product which I may not want to miss. But if it is an expensive product, I would prefer, going for a lot of consumers who are vouching that they are happy with that particular product. And some of the indicators of true reviews or there will be always some fake reviews which will be published by the sellers in order to show their products to be good for the new prospective clients. But then things like the portal is certifying that this is an authentic customer. That is one of the signs which I feel it's a kind of approval by the portal, and that I would definitely bank upon. Second thing which I would look for is are there any images or videos which have been posted in support of whatever rating or review that particular person has posted. And that will give me a confidence that yes, I mean, it is being supported, so that must be true. Third thing is, as far as possible, you look for the real persons. Most of the people who are putting their reviews and ratings, they should be named with their real names, because that is where we can associate that review with a real person. So these are the few of the indicators which I feel will help you in identifying the good reviews from the bad reviews. And one of the most important things is, out of the total number of reviews that or ratings that are available, at least some percentage of those have to be genuinely low ratings, because there will be some unsatisfied customers in spite of whatever best product you may be selling. Reasons could be different. The person is not able to operate the product, or is not able to install the product, whatever it may be. But then he may end up giving a negative feedback, and those feedbacks also should be openly and transparently published. That is what I feel. These are some of the things, these are my thoughts.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Also, so does anybody else have any other questions? All right, guys.
There is also, there is also one more comment which has come from Roshni.
Yes.
Added a point.
Yeah.
I think it's been published for everyone, but that's a very good point she has mentioned. Indian Chamber of Commerce is launching a web store project in December, where they are exhibiting the crafts and products produced by local artisans. That's definitely an excellent initiative to encourage the local craft. And these people don't get a platform usually to advertise their products and to be able to reach out across India. And this will be an excellent opportunity for them. So anybody who wants to promote such kind of initiatives should be, encouraging the artisans that they know, and they should bring their craft or art to this particular platform, which will make it global.
I have a small input for Indian Chamber of Commerce. The initiative is really looking cool, but if you look at the export market, and if you compare our local artisans' objects, so I have been involved with all these activities for quite a long time, and been to their places in reality, like their villages, their how they are working, and the way they are making those kind of arts and crafts. If you look at Dokra as a Dokra art, or if you look at uh, maybe Potochitro or Potomaya, these are all different kind of gharanas, which is maybe our own culture. But if you really want to make it global and really want to sell, I think it needs a process instead of a marketplace. If you go back to their village, they are really, really poor. There is no question about it, and they stay in a very different way of livelihood. But the fact is, if you try to teach them how to do it on a process-oriented mechanism, there is a huge gap. So I guess if Indian Chamber of Commerce can take that initiative, giving them real knowledge about how to make products which is acceptable in a lot of different countries, I think they can. It can actually boost up their sales. Uh, Even though kudos to your effort about making a marketplace. There are multiple marketplaces like this, but the solo model is actually failing just because that we don't have the proper process. Just an input from my end.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree.
And Roshni has another question. How effective will this idea of mixed reality be, keeping the perception of Indian market in mind? This is to Mr. Arijit again.
Yeah, excellent question. Thank you for the question. Actually, so mixed reality is yet to see the sun in India. It's still evolving. Um, Forget about mixed reality. Even though we don't have the infrastructure for virtual reality, so we don't have people who are maybe buying VR devices because the price is really, really high. But till date, I feel the future is on augmented reality because people have their own smartphone. You don't need a extra any hardware to buy, and that's affordable. And you can do a lot of work on augmented reality. Coming back to the mixed reality question, yeah, the industry implementation is happening in a lot of cases, like maybe in oil rigging, maybe in aviation industries, in healthcare, health tech. These are happening. If you look at India, there are multiple number of examples that I can go on with those kind of MR application. And what I have experienced till date, apart from gaming, the industry implementation is happening in a huge scale. If I give you a percentage, probably 60% work is happening on industry, 40% is happening on probably in entertainment and gaming sector. But yes, we are yet to get our own mind-blowing global product on mixed reality. Probably if we handshake with a couple of global players.
Thank you so much, sir. Um, you can also find the videos on YouTube. This session will be uploaded on YouTube as well as other platforms. And yeah, it was a wonderful session. Thank you so much, speakers. And would you guys like to say something about the interaction with us on this webinar?
Yes, it was a wonderful experience, and I could see there were a lot of participants also. So you are able to reach out many key people, industry leaders. We would definitely like to participate in such events in the future also. Thank you very much for inviting, and that was wonderful.
Thank you so much, sir. Would be honored to have you. Um, yes, that's it. Anybody else has to say something? Any last words?
Well, great, Vinita. You did a wonderful job. It was nice to get it here.
Thank you so much, sir.
Great, Abhijit. You are fantastic. And so is Abhijit.
Thank you very much.
Mm.
All of us, I think, presented different views, but it was quite insightful.
Exactly. I'm sure everyone who's watching this and who are going to watch this have a lot to take away from this discussion.
Just one question.
Yeah, Vikas has a question.
For the participants who couldn't join,
Sorry, sir.
this recording will be available for those who couldn't join.
Yes, it'll be on YouTube as well. So you can go ahead and check it whenever you want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Vikas has a comment. Mr. Arijit, to add to your comment about Indian Chamber or Commerce, I feel collaboration with international artists with local artisans working together in a collaborative manner might help. This will ensure local artisans get the international platform, international artisans learning about Indian art. Okay, thank you, Vikas.
I'm sure because this will happen. Look at the South Korean market and the way they have created these kind of villages, and that become a hub for tourists to go there, learn their own local art. They are using gold to do the local arts. They are using silver. They are using copper. It become a global phenomena. People actually stay there for 2 to 2.5 months just to learn from the artisans. Just giving you my thoughts. It's not that this has to be done. Just giving you my thoughts.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. It was a wonderful session. Thank you, speakers, for joining us today. And yeah, thanks a lot.